Are you tired of arguing about sex with your husband? I know what conversation that you guys need to have that will end all of that. Welcome to the first episode of I Do Now What. I'm your host, Victoria Doss. I've been married for 10 years and there's a lot of things that I wish I would have known going into the marriage that I just had to learn as I went. And I'm trying to save wives from the arguments and the frustrations and just the feelings that you have in marriage when you don't know how to navigate tough waters. That's what I'm here for. Okay. So the one conversation that you need to be having if your libido is lower than your husband's or vice versa. Most people, as soon as they get married, they're like, oh, sex life is going to be great. Especially that first year, we're going to be like rabbits. That's not always the case. And that wasn't the case for us. Does that mean that we weren't attracted to each other? No, not at all. It had nothing to do with that. But my needs were a lot lower than my new husband's needs were. And we fought about that a lot, like a lot. The main thing, and I think this is pretty common. The main thing is that it's on a man's mind more often, like I don't know how many times a day, like statistically, there's a certain amount of times that it's on a man's mind during the day. It's at least like 10, maybe 20. And for women, me at the time, I could think about sex maybe twice a month. And I would have been good with that. I would have been satisfied with that. But I was not married to myself. Hello, I had a spouse. And I did not understand why I needed to make sure that I met his needs. I didn't comprehend that for a long time in marriage. And that led to a lot of fights. So, the conversation that I had, if your spouse is always initiating sex and you're always like, oh, I'm tired, oh, not right now, or maybe you're not always rejecting, maybe you guys are only active in the bedroom when your spouse initiates. And that is not good enough, actually. Even if you say yes all the time, if he is the only one initiating, it does not make him feel good. It does not make him feel desired. You need to be doing some initiating. The problem that we had, maybe you guys have this problem too, the problem we had is that if I'm not thinking about it, I'm not going to think to initiate it. He could initiate it all the time because it was always on his mind. I wouldn't really initiate it very much because it was never on my mind, and he would beat me to it before it was on my mind. So what do? We had this conversation that changed our fights about our sex life. I said, you know what? Since this is the case for us, how about you tell me what is the minimum amount that you need per week in order to be satisfied? And he gave me a number. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Now, in the beginning, I had to again, because I'm not thinking about it all the time. I don't remember if I put it in my calendar, but I had to do something like that. And you're probably like, well, that's not sexy. You have to schedule bedroom time with your new spouse. Like, who does that? I did because it was clearly very important to him. And I wanted to be a good spouse and satisfy his needs as often as he needed it within reason. And so that's what we did. And I just had to keep that. Even if I wasn't thinking about sex, I was thinking very frequently about the frequency. Okay, it's been a few days. All right, time to drop them draws, it's been this many days. Oh, okay, I can see why he's frustrated. And I would start to learn him more. I could see when he was sexually frustrated. Oftentimes, maybe you notice this with your spouse, but oftentimes when they just seem frustrated and just kind of builds and builds and builds, I feel like a lot of times that's sexual frustration. And if you are slow to pinpoint that, you're going to have a lot more fights, especially if your spouse is not vocal or if they're tired of being vocal about it all the time. They're tired of initiating. They're tired of begging for it. They're tired of feeling like they have to beg for it. Your spouse does not want to feel like they have to beg for it. Whether a wife or a husband, nobody wants to feel like they have to beg for that from their spouse. By the way, on this channel, we discuss husbands and wives in the married sex context, okay? We're not doing any of the other stuff. Thank you. So I want you guys to tell me in the comments, is this something that you went through or are going through or could probably see yourself going through? And what are you going to do about it? Now, it's easy for women or anyone to fall back on excuses. Okay, my libido was low because I was on this birth control, or I was on this medicine, or I was going through this, or I just didn't have time, or I was too tired. Everybody has an excuse for whatever. Some are much more valid excuses than others, but again, if it is important, you will prioritize it. If it is important, you will prioritize it. Just like if it's just super important for you to get flowers every Valentine's Day because that's just what you're used to, and anything less than that makes you not love the person anymore or something, I don't know. If your husband knows that, he's going to prioritize getting you flowers every Valentine's Day. If he understands, if he comprehends how important it is. If you do not comprehend how important sex is for husbands, you're going to have a lot harder of a marriage. It's like going without food for men. I don't understand it. I'm not a man. But apparently it's like going without food for days and days and days. You know when you get hangry, like you're cranky because you haven't eaten in a while and you just keep getting crankier and crankier. Or maybe when you're tired, you haven't slept in a while, that kind of thing. That's kind of how it is for men, husbands, when they don't get to experience satisfaction with their wife. But speaking of excuses, I did have to come off of the birth control that I was on and figure out something else because it was lowering my libido. So maybe some of these reasons why you're not thinking about it as much, you can eliminate those reasons or decrease those reasons. Are you too tired from work? Ask your husband, hey, can I be a stay-at-home wife? I'll have a lot more energy for sex. His ears will be wide open. Hopefully. I also want to bring up, you don't want sex to feel like a chore with you and your spouse, but it is important that you guys connect in the bedroom as often as each other needs it. Compromise with whoever needs it, the higher amount. Compromise, meet in the middle. Right? But I know a lot of wives feel like sex is a chore. They're just like, oh, I got to do that thing again with him. They got to drag themselves into the bedroom. It's not enjoyable for them. Maybe their husband is selfish and is only concerned about themselves in the bedroom. Maybe that adds to it. That's a talk that needs to be had with the husband. Respectfully. I just want to remind you and put it out there, it is totally okay for women to be eager and be excited to be in the bedroom, even if the frequency is more than you need. Maybe you don't need it as much, but if someone takes me to the ice cream shop twice a week, I'm gonna go. I don't need ice cream twice a week, but if my husband wants to take me to the ice cream shop at that frequency, you know what? I'm gonna start to enjoy it more. I'm gonna find different things that I can do, different things I can add on it, strawberries, whipped cream, and all that stuff. No pun intended. I'm going to make an experience out of it, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't feel like a chore. Like, oh, fine, I'll go to the ice cream shop with you today. Nobody wants to do that. That leaves people in a weird place when you're wanting to engage in bedroom activity with your spouse and they clearly don't want to. Some people start tossing other words around, and we don't want those words tossed around, right? I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Try to be mindful of the YouTube algorithm, please, when you are leaving your comments. Use friendly words, but I do want to know, PG version, how you guys are navigating married sex life without making it a chore. I'm going to see you guys in the next episode, which will be about what to do when your husband shuts down and how to get him to open up. See you guys.